Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Quinn stood before the freshly covered grave, her black umbrella offering little protection from the elements. The cemetery, once filled with mourners, now lay empty save for her solitary figure. She stared at the headstone, her grandmother's name etched in cold, unforgiving stone. A gust of wind whipped at her coat, and she pulled it tighter around her body. The funeral had been a somber affair, filled with relatives she barely knew and conversations that felt hollow. Now, in the aftermath, Quinn felt more alone than ever. With a deep breath, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled photograph. It was faded and worn, but the image was still clear. A family portrait from years ago. Her mother's smile, her sister's playful grins, and a younger version of herself before she had embraced her true identity. Quinn traced her finger over the familiar faces, a lump forming in her throat. They had left when she was just a child, disappearing without a trace. Her grandmother had been her rock, her constant, but now even she was gone. The wind picked up again, threatening to tear the photo from her grasp. Quinn hastily tucked it back into her pocket, her resolve strengthening. It was time to find them, to reconnect with the family she had lost. As she turned to leave, her eyes fell on a small bouquet of wildflowers nestled against the headstone. A memory flashed through her mind. Her older sister, Gabriella, always loved picking wildflowers in the meadow behind their old house. Quinn's heart raced. Could it be a sign? A clue? She knelt down, examining the flowers closely. There, tucked beneath the stems, was a small card. With trembling fingers, she plucked it out and read the handwritten message. For the woman who raised us all, may you find peace. G. Gabriella. Quinn's breath caught in her throat. Her sister had been here at the funeral. She had missed her by mere hours. Clutching the card to her chest, Quinn stood up, her mind whirling with possibilities. She remembered snippets of conversations overheard years ago, whispers of a place Gabriella had always dreamed of going. It was a long shot, but it was all she had. With renewed purpose, Quinn strode out of the cemetery, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. She hailed a taxi, her destination clear in her mind. The journey was long and winding, taking Quinn through small towns and sprawling countryside. She spent nights in dingy motels, poring over maps and making countless phone calls. Her job at the bank had given her connections, and she used every resource at her disposal to track down leads. Days turned into weeks, and Quinn found herself at a truck stop nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. Her funds were running low, and she was beginning to lose hope. "You look like you could use a friend," a gruff voice said. Quinn looked up to see a weathered woman in a trucker's cap sliding into the booth across from her. The woman's eyes were kind, despite her rough exterior. "I'm fine, thanks," Quinn replied, attempting a smile. The trucker raised an eyebrow. "Honey, I've been on the road long enough to know when someone's running from something or towards something. Which is it for you?" Quinn hesitated, then found herself spilling her story to this stranger. The trucker listened intently, nodding along. "Well, ain't that something?" she said when Quinn finished. "You know, I might be able to help you out. I'm heading in that direction myself. How about a ride?" Quinn's eyes widened. "Really? You'd do that for me?" The trucker shrugged. "Us girls gotta stick together, right? Besides, it gets lonely on the road. Some company would be nice." And so Quinn found herself in the passenger seat of a massive 18-wheeler, watching the world fly by outside the window. The trucker, who introduced herself as Margie, regaled her with stories of life on the road. As they drove, Quinn felt a sense of camaraderie she hadn't experienced in years. Margie didn't bat an eye at Quinn's identity, treating her with the same gruff kindness she seemed to extend to everyone. They stopped at various truck stops along the way, and Quinn was surprised to find a network of support among the drivers. Word spread quickly about her search, and soon she was receiving tips and leads from truckers all across the country. One evening, as they sat in a diner sharing a plate of fries, Margie's CB radio crackled to life. A voice came through, mentioning a women's school in a small town not far from their current location. Quinn's heart raced. Could this be it? The place Gabriella had dreamed of? With Margie's encouragement, Quinn decided to investigate. They arrived in the town late at night, the streets quiet and empty. Margie dropped Quinn off at a small bed and breakfast, promising to check in on her in a few days. The next morning, Quinn set out to explore the town. It didn't take long to find the school, a sprawling campus with ivy-covered buildings and manicured lawns. As she approached the main office, her nerves threatened to overwhelm her. Taking a deep breath, Quinn pushed open the door. The receptionist looked up, a welcoming smile on her face. "Can I help you?" she asked. Quinn swallowed hard. "I'm looking for someone. Gabriella. I think she might work here." The receptionist's eyes widened in recognition. "Oh, you must mean Headmistress Gabriella. Let me see if she's available." Quinn's heart nearly stopped. Headmistress? Her sister was the headmistress of this school? Before she could process this information, a door opened and a tall, elegant woman stepped out. Her hair was streaked with gray, but her eyes... Quinn would recognize those eyes anywhere. "Gabriella?" Quinn's voice was barely a whisper. The woman froze, her gaze locking onto Quinn. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a cry of joy, Gabriella rushed forward, enveloping Quinn in a tight embrace. "Quinn, is it really you?" Gabriella pulled back, her hands cupping Quinn's face. "Look at you. You're so beautiful." Tears streamed down Quinn's cheeks as she nodded. "I found you. I can't believe I finally found you." The sisters spent hours talking, catching up on years of lost time. Gabriella listened intently as Quinn shared her journey of self-discovery and transition. There were tears and laughter, and a healing that Quinn hadn't realized she needed. "I'm so proud of you," Gabriella said, squeezing Quinn's hand. "And I'm so sorry we left. We thought we were protecting you, but we were wrong." Quinn nodded, understanding dawning. "What about Mom? And our other sisters?" Gabriella's expression turned sad. "Mom passed away a few years ago. As for the others, we've lost touch. But Quinn, you're here now, and I'm not letting you go again." Over the next few days, Gabriella showed Quinn around the school. It was a haven for women from all walks of life, a place of learning and growth. Quinn felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. "You know," Gabriella said one evening as they sat in her office, "we have an opening for a finance teacher. With your background in banking..." Quinn's eyes widened. "Are you offering me a job?" Gabriella smiled. "I'm offering you a home if you want it, a chance to be part of something special." Quinn didn't hesitate. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." And so Quinn found herself embarking on a new chapter of her life. She threw herself into teaching, using her experiences to connect with and inspire her students. The school became her sanctuary, a place where she could be herself without fear or judgment. Months passed and Quinn flourished. She made friends among the faculty and students alike, her natural warmth and compassion drawing people to her. She started a support group for LGBT students, providing a safe space for them to share their experiences and find acceptance. One afternoon, as Quinn was grading papers in her classroom, there was a knock at the door. She looked up to see Margie, the trucker who had helped her on her journey, standing in the doorway. "Well, look at you," Margie said with a grin. "Seems like you found what you were looking for." Quinn rushed to embrace her friend. "Margie, what are you doing here?" The trucker shrugged. "Just passing through. Thought I'd check in on you. Looks like you're doing all right for yourself." Quinn beamed. "More than all right. I'm home." As they caught up, Quinn realized how far she had come. From the lost, grieving woman at her grandmother's funeral to the confident, fulfilled person she was now. She had found her family, her purpose, and most importantly, herself. That evening, as Quinn stood on the balcony of her small campus apartment, watching the sun set over the school grounds, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The journey had been long and difficult, but every step had led her here. She thought of her grandmother, of the family she had lost and found again. She thought of the students whose lives she was touching and the colleagues who had become friends, and she thought of herself, the woman she had become, strong and proud and unafraid. Quinn smiled, breathing in the cool evening air. She was exactly where she was meant to be. As the weeks turned into months, Quinn's life at the school settled into a comfortable rhythm. She threw herself into her teaching, constantly seeking new ways to engage her students and make finance accessible and interesting. Her classes quickly became some of the most popular on campus, with students praising her practical approach and genuine care for their success. Outside of the classroom, Quinn found herself becoming more involved in the school community. She joined the diversity committee, working alongside Gabriella and other faculty members to ensure the school was inclusive and welcoming to all. Her own experiences as a trans woman provided valuable insight. One day, as Quinn was leaving her classroom, she noticed a student lingering behind. The girl, Emma, had been quiet throughout the semester, often sitting at the back of the room and rarely participating. "Is everything all right, Emma?" Quinn asked, concern evident in her voice. Emma hesitated, then spoke softly. "Miss Quinn, I wanted to thank you. For being here." Quinn's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Emma took a deep breath. "I'm trans too. I haven't told anyone here yet, but seeing you, it gives me hope that I can be myself and still succeed." Tears welled up in Quinn's eyes as she listened to Emma's words. She remembered her own struggles, the fear and uncertainty that had plagued her for so long. Without hesitation, she pulled Emma into a hug. "You are brave and beautiful, Emma," Quinn said, her voice thick with emotion. "And you have a whole community here ready to support you." From that day on, Quinn took Emma under her wing, providing guidance and support as the young woman began her own journey of transition. It was a role Quinn never expected to have, but one she embraced wholeheartedly. As the school year progressed, Quinn's reputation as a compassionate and effective teacher grew. Students sought her out not just for academic advice, but for personal guidance as well. She found herself staying late many evenings, offering a listening ear and words of encouragement to those who needed it. One such evening, as Quinn was locking up her classroom, she heard footsteps approaching. Looking up, she saw Gabriella walking towards her, a warm smile on her face. "Working late again, sis?" Gabriella asked, falling into step beside Quinn. Quinn shrugged. "You know how it is. There's always someone who needs a little extra help." Gabriella nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You've really found your calling here, haven't you?" "I have," Quinn replied, a sense of contentment washing over her. "I never imagined I could be this happy, this fulfilled." They walked in companionable silence for a moment before Gabriella spoke again. "Quinn, I've been thinking. The school board is looking to expand our outreach programs to connect with more diverse communities. I was wondering if you'd be interested in heading up that initiative." Quinn stopped in her tracks, stunned. "Me? But I've only been here a year." Gabriella turned to face her, taking Quinn's hands in her own. "And in that year, you've made more of an impact than some teachers do in a decade. Your perspective, your experiences, they're invaluable. You could really make a difference." Quinn's mind raced with the possibilities. She thought of all the young people out there struggling with their identities, feeling alone and afraid as she once had. The chance to reach out to them, to show them that there was hope and acceptance waiting for them, it was overwhelming. I'd be honored," Quinn finally said, her voice filled with emotion. Gabriella pulled her into a tight hug. "I knew you'd say yes. We'll start planning next week. For now, how about we grab dinner? I think this calls for a celebration." As they walked off campus together, arm in arm, Quinn felt a surge of gratitude. For her sister, for this school, for the journey that had brought her here. She had come so far from that rainy day in the cemetery, and yet, in many ways, her journey was just beginning. One afternoon, as Quinn was knee-deep in grant proposals, there was a knock at her office door. She looked up to see Margie, the trucker who had become such an unexpected but vital part of her journey. "Margie?" Quinn exclaimed, jumping up to greet her friend. "What brings you here?" Margie grinned, pulling Quinn into a bear hug. "Just passing through again. Thought I'd see how my favorite teacher was doing. Looks like you're keeping busy." Quinn laughed, gesturing to the chaos of her office. "You could say that. I'm working on a new outreach program for the school, trying to connect with LGBT youth in underserved communities." Margie's eyes lit up. "Now that sounds like important work. You know, I've been thinking about hanging up my keys, settling down somewhere. Maybe I could lend a hand." Quinn's jaw dropped. "Are you serious? Margie, that would be amazing. Your network of contacts across the country could be invaluable." And just like that, Margie became an integral part of the outreach team. Her years on the road had given her a unique perspective and a wealth of connections that proved invaluable as they began to set up satellite programs in various communities. As the outreach program took shape, Quinn found herself traveling more, visiting schools and community centers across the state. She shared her story and listened to others. During one such trip, Quinn found herself in a small town not unlike the one she had grown up in. She was scheduled to speak at the local high school, and as she stood at the podium looking out at the sea of young faces, she felt a sense of déjà vu. "I stood where you're sitting now, not so long ago," she began, her voice steady and clear, scared, uncertain, feeling like I didn't belong. "But I'm here to tell you that it gets better, that there's a whole world out there ready to embrace you for who you are." As she spoke, Quinn noticed a young person in the back of the auditorium, hanging on her every word. The student's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and hope, a look Quinn recognized all too well. After the presentation, as the students filed out, that same young person approached Quinn hesitantly. "Miss, I just wanted to say thank you. I've never met anyone like me before. I didn't know it was possible to be happy." Quinn's heart swelled with emotion. She remembered Emma, remembered herself at that age. "It's more than possible," she said softly. "It's your right, and you're not alone, not anymore." That night, as Quinn lay in her hotel room, she couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing with ideas, with the faces of all the young people she had met, with the potential for change. She grabbed her laptop and began to type furiously, the outline of a book taking shape before her eyes. It would be a guide, she decided. A roadmap for LGBTQ youth navigating the often treacherous waters of self-discovery and acceptance. She would share her story, yes, but also the stories of others, a tapestry of experiences that would show the beauty and diversity of the queer community. As the sun began to rise, Quinn finally set her laptop aside, exhausted but exhilarated. She had found her purpose, not just in teaching or in the outreach program, but in sharing her journey with the world. Months flew by, and Quinn's life became a delicate balance of teaching, outreach work, and writing. She would often find herself scribbling notes between classes or staying up late into the night, pouring her heart onto the pages. Gabriella, ever supportive, adjusted Quinn's teaching schedule to give her more time for her other projects. "You're changing lives, Quinn," she would say. "We need to give you the space to do that." Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and no time at all, Quinn held the first printed copy of her book in her hands. "Becoming Quinn, A Journey of Self-Discovery and Acceptance," the cover read. She ran her fingers over the embossed letters, hardly able to believe it was real. The book launch was held at the school, with students, faculty, and community members filling the auditorium. As Quinn stood at the podium preparing to read an excerpt, she caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. There was Emma, now in her final year and flourishing. Margie, beaming with pride from the front row, Gabriella, her eyes shining with tears of joy, and scattered throughout the audience, faces of students and community members whose lives she had touched over the past few years. Quinn took a deep breath, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. She thought back to that rainy day in the cemetery, to the lost and grieving woman she had been. If only she could have known then what awaited her, the family she would find, the purpose she would discover, the lives she would touch. As she began to read, her voice strong and clear, Quinn felt a sense of completion. She had found her place in the world, had become the person she was always meant to be. And now, through her words and her work, she was helping others do the same. The journey had been long and often difficult, but standing there, surrounded by her chosen family and the community she had helped build, Quinn knew that every step had been worth it. She was home, she was whole, and she was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. As the applause died down and Quinn stepped away from the podium, she was immediately engulfed in a sea of hugs and congratulations. Students, colleagues, and community members alike wanted to share how her story had touched them, how her work had made a difference in their lives. Among the crowd, Quinn spotted a familiar face she hadn't seen in years. It was her younger sister, Alicia, looking older but with the same mischievous glint in her eye that Quinn remembered from childhood. "Alicia?" Quinn gasped, pushing through the crowd to reach her. "Is it really you?" Alicia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I saw your book in a store window. I couldn't believe it. I've been trying to find you for so long." The sisters embraced, years of separation melting away in an instant. As they pulled apart, Quinn noticed Gabriella approaching, her face a mixture of shock and joy. "Alicia?" Gabriella whispered, reaching out to touch her younger sister's face. I think we have a lot to catch up on," Alicia said with a watery smile. "Both of you." As the event wound down, the three sisters found themselves in Quinn's office, talking late into the night. They shared stories of their lives, of the years they had missed, of the paths that had led them to this moment. Alicia, it turned out, had become a social worker, inspired by her own experiences and the desire to help others. When she had seen Quinn's book, she had immediately booked a flight, determined to reconnect with her family. As they talked, Quinn felt a piece of herself that had been missing for so long finally fall into place. Her family was coming back together, not as they had been, but as who they had become. The next morning, as Quinn walked across the campus with her sisters, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The school that had become her home was now truly a family affair, with Gabriella as headmistress, Quinn running the outreach program, and Alicia offering to lend her expertise to the school's counseling services. As they passed groups of students heading to class, Quinn couldn't help but smile. Each face represented a story, a journey, a potential for growth and change. And she was here to help guide them, to show them that no matter where they came from or who they were, they had a place here. In the years that followed, Quinn's life continued to evolve in ways she never could have imagined. Her book became a bestseller, leading to speaking engagements across the country. The school's outreach program expanded, touching lives in communities far and wide. But more than the accolades or the professional success, it was the quiet moments that Quinn treasured most. The late-night talks with her sisters, rebuilding the bond they had lost. The proud smiles on her students' faces as they overcame challenges and discovered their own strengths. The letters from readers sharing how her story had given them hope. One evening, as Quinn stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sun set over the campus, she felt a deep sense of peace wash over her. She thought of the long and winding road that had brought her here, of the pain and the joy, the losses and the gains. She thought of her grandmother, whose love had been a constant in her life and whose memory still guided her. She thought of Margie, the unexpected friend who had helped her find her way. She thought of Emma, now graduated and starting her own journey as an advocate for trans rights. And she thought of herself. the scared, uncertain person she had once been, and the strong, confident woman she had become. Every step of her journey, every challenge she had faced had led her to this moment. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Quinn smiled. She was exactly where she was meant to be, surrounded by love, purpose, and endless possibilities. The journey, she realized, was far from over. There would be new challenges to face, new lives to touch, new stories to tell. But now, with her family by her side and a community supporting her, Quinn was ready for whatever lay ahead. She took a deep breath, savoring the cool evening air. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new opportunities to make a difference. And Quinn couldn't wait to see what the future held. As she turned to go back inside, Quinn caught sight of her reflection in the window. She saw a woman who had found her truth, who had embraced her identity, and who was using her experiences to light the way for others. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, to the twists of fate that had brought her here. "Thank you for this beautiful, messy, incredible journey." With a heart full of gratitude and a spirit ready for new adventures, Quinn stepped back into her apartment, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. Her story, she knew, was still being written, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take her next. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.